Sabina is a principal at Zen Clean Energy Solutions. She's a registered professional engineer with Engineers and Geoscientists British Columbia with a degree in mechanical engineering from the University of British Columbia and an executive certificate in strategy and innovation from MIT Sloan. She has over 20 years of experience working in the clean energy sector, spanning a range of roles from technology and product development to product management and corporate development. Sabina specializes in helping her clients where combined technical knowledge and hands-on commercial experience are an asset. Sabina leads Zen's project management branch with a focus on consortium-based projects deploying clean and zero emissions technologies. Prior to joining Zen, Sabina was with Ballard Powered Systems for over 18 years, where she had roles including Director of Product Engineering, where she led a team of over 95 engineers and scientists. Thank you so much, Sabina. Over to you.
Thanks, Erin. Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here today, and I have to say that the Zen team has really truly enjoyed working with Oceans North to put this together. We've certainly learned a lot, and we hope you all do today as well. And we wanted to kick off with a really quick overview of the hydrogen strategy for Canada. I know a lot of you have seen some of this, so I will go quite quickly. And just to talk about some of the global momentum that's been happening, and then a bit deeper dive on opportunities in ports, especially in BC. So next slide, please. So the hydrogen strategy for Canada was released by NRCan in December of last year. The Zen team were lead authors on that, working closely with NRCan through 2020. A lot of stakeholder engagement to develop the strategy. It took, a few years to do all the background studies and pull it all together. But it's an exciting time. When we started writing the strategy, 18 countries around the world had released federal strategies or roadmaps relating to hydrogen, and now 30 have. So Canada got on it at the right time. And to quote the Honorable Seamus O'Regan, if Canada is going to continue to prosper, we've got to skate to where the puck is going, and hydrogen is where the puck is going. So hydrogen is a very, very important part of our future energy system in Canada. Next slide. So in terms of what's driving it, I think everybody recognizes that it's all about decarbonization. That's what the conversation is about today. To be honest, when I started in fuel cells in the mid-90s, it was more driven by clean air and local air quality in places like California and China. That's still very important. It's still a big benefit of hydrogen, but really it's about reducing carbon emissions and this path to net zero. So if you look at Canada's emissions, we have about 730 megatons of CO2 emissions per year. I think it's no surprise where the big emitting sectors are. Transportation is something we're going to talk about a lot today. Oil and gas, the built environment, so heating for buildings, especially in Canada's colder climate, and then heavy industry. And hydrogen is very well positioned to serve a role in all of those energy intense, heavy emitting sectors that are challenging for some of the direct electrification opportunities that are also very important in net zero. So that's why we need to do it. And the good thing is Canada is extremely well positioned to take a lead here. In terms of comparative advantages, we're very rich in the feedstocks to make hydrogen, from our clean hydroelectricity grid in BC to our rich fossil fuel reserves, to our water reserves. I think many of you from BC know that we have a real leading innovation position in Canada, and especially in BC, the hub built around Ballard over all these 40 years since Ballard started. We have a great energy sector with infrastructure assets, skilled labor that could really pivot towards hydrogen as we move to net zero. And then there's a lot that we're going to talk about today around export potential and international partnerships and trade. And I think that's going to be a very key part of Canada's hydrogen story going forward. And we have a head start. We're one of the top 10 producers in the world today for hydrogen. Most of it is considered gray or higher carbon intensity hydrogen, but we're positioned to change that and really embrace being a leader in clean hydrogen. So I talked about the driver being decarbonization, but as I said, there's other benefits too. Clean air in our urban centers, clean air in our ports that are high emission sources. We have an opportunity to really keep jobs in our petroleum sector. And to be honest, when you look at net zero, we can't just have one form of delivering energy. We need to have resiliency in our system. We need to have both chemical fuels and direct electrification. And that resiliency will come with a mix of low carbon fuels. And finally, hydrogen is going to lead to economic growth, so jobs and revenue potential for the domestic market and the export market. Next slide, please. So I just want to say that, you know, Canada has a strong starting point, and to be honest, this is already out of date since the strategy was released. A whole bunch of big, exciting new projects have been announced. If you look at BC, what we're talking about today, we've got leaders here who have helped to develop the light duty hydrogen fueling network. Minister Wilkinson is a driver of a Nexo, so he uses that network. We have this amazing clean tech cluster. You know, we talk about Ballard a lot, but there's so many companies that have spun out around it, developing fuel cells, developing hydrogen storage materials, infrastructure components, developing dual combustion with hydrogen and diesel. That would be the hydrogen ICE demonstration project in Prince George. And the government's taking an active role as well. So we have, obviously the Clean BC plan is leading the way. We have the hydrogen study that was published in 2019, and the government's working on a roadmap to take us to the next step. So next slide. Did that move for everybody else? Oh, there we go. Okay. So in terms of you know, how we make hydrogen, Canada is taking a pragmatic view and saying we need a lot of hydrogen by 2050 to meet net zero, and we need it to all be low carbon intensity. But we're not going to be selective on what pathways we're going to support. We're going to support all low carbon intensity pathways, from generating hydrogen through electrolysis from renewables to reformation of natural gas with carbon capture, utilization, and storage. And there's a whole bunch of new and emerging technologies out there that we probably can't even imagine will be deployed by 2050. So as I said, today we're a top 10 producer. And if you just click the next slide, the strategy, there's some animation there. The strategy presents a vision to be one of the top 3 global producers of clean hydrogen going forward. So that's how it's made, how it's used. It's very, very versatile hydrogen. So today we're going to focus more on use in transportation applications, from, you know, marine vessels to off-road vehicles that could be used in ports. And typically in those cases, hydrogen is used in a fuel cell, which is very high efficiency, zero emission at the tailpipe. Hydrogen can also be combusted as a blend with natural gas. There's a lot of exciting work there in BC, driven by our renewable gas target. That can help decarbonize industry and the built environment. And then there's a whole bunch of existing industry and new industries that can be formed when we have abundant supply of low cost, low carbon intensity hydrogen, from ammonia production to make fertilizer, to steel production, to even other fuel types like liquid synthetic fuels. Next slide. So if you look at where Canada is today and the amount of energy we use, so the energy delivered to the end use applications is about 9,400 petajoules of energy per year. And you can see a lot of it is delivered today in the form of fossil fuels. And even the electricity pathway, if you go upstream in many of our provinces, that still relies on petroleum products to make it. So about 80% of our primary energy is still from a fossil fuel. And so when we look to net zero in 2050, if you just click the animation through here, I think there's a couple clicks, you really look at how do we deliver energy without carbon attached to it. There's actually not, there's not that many options. Of course, we have to decarbonize our electricity grid, so the electricity we're delivering is clean. We have to do our best to eliminate distributed combustion emissions that release carbon into the air. So we're going to be pushing biofuels to the limit. We'll be pushing batteries to the limit. And of course, deploying hydrogen at scale. And so the modeling done in the strategy shows about 30% of our delivered energy will be in the form of hydrogen, and that will result in about 25% of our emissions reduction from today's base. Next slide. So how do we get there? The strategy talks a lot about this hub concept. That's what we're wanting to brainstorm with you all today. We see British Columbia as already starting some hub formation. By hubs, we mean development of the full value chain at scale in a regional geographic region, so that we can really get the economics and benefits of multiple end uses working together. And over time, we'll have more hubs, and those hubs will be connected. Next slide. So when we think about how our hubs are connected and what our infrastructure build out will be, it's of course really important to understand what's happening around the rest of the world. This is a busy slide. I'm not going to go through it all, but the colors on the map show regional potential for hydrogen. So red regions really are going to be importing a lot of hydrogen, and they have strategies showing that already. Many other parts of the world have developed, strategies to become a domestic user and also exporter. And some are really focused on renewables where they have strong solar or wind resources. Some are focused more on a blend of, clean fossil fuel pathways and renewables. And so Canada, as I said, has abundant resources. We have great opportunities to become an exporter. And we wanted to highlight, in the black where some of the port projects are, because other ports around the world are already recognizing the role they will need to play in bunkering fuel and moving it offshore. So I think I'll leave that with you, but just want to say that worldwide, there's about 228 major projects for hydrogen announced. And that represents about 300 billion in investment already announced and being built. And most of that, 85% of that is in Europe, Asia, and Australia. So where is Canada? Where is North America? That's what we need to start really thinking about. Next slide. So this just gives that vision of how those hubs will be connected through infrastructure. Of course, the ports are where we move out to export to some countries. We do look at pipelines also to the US as being an important part of infrastructure. Next slide. So, why are we focused on ports? Why do we think they're great for hub development? For one thing, ports just have a whole bunch of different modes of transportation coming in and out of them. They are high point emission sources of both greenhouse gases and local air pollutants like NOx and SOx and particulate matter. So there's a pressure to decarbonize and improve air quality around ports. And you see a lot of that in California. There's a huge effort to decarbonize ports going on right now. And that's where we're seeing a lot of hydrogen projects as well in North America. Also, there's a reliance on diesel with some very heavy duty equipment that can be challenged to go to batteries. And so hydrogen, I think Nicholas is going to talk about some of the benefits in that heavy duty equipment. And so when we look at the challenges economically of developing hydrogen at scale in Canada, wherever we can have shared fueling infrastructure for different end uses, that's where we can really make the economics work in the early days. And so ports are great for that as well. I'm going to go to the next slide, trying to catch up a little bit. We are also going to talk about not just use at the ports, but use in marine vessels that come in and out of the ports. And I just want to say here that hydrogen doesn't just get used directly in a fuel cell. It can be used in other types of fuels that are more suited to retrofitting combustion engines. Next slide. So my last two slides here, just want to say that we do have a project happening in BC around a port. And I think that Ronan and others are going to talk to this, but it involves 4 yard trucks, 2 at BC Ferries, 2 at HarbourLink. It involves a drayage truck as well that's going to be operated by HarbourLink. So it's great, to see some vehicle deployments. And then if we go to the next slide, the other key piece of it is mentioned that BC is really working to build out a hydrogen refueling network for light duty vehicles and starting to deploy for heavy duty as well. They're different, they run at different pressures, but they can be co-located together. So this will become a new node in our light duty fueling station with 700 bar fueling for fleets of vehicles like Mirais or Nexos. And it will have a 350 bar station to start the deployment of heavy duty in the province. So I think that was my last slide. This is just the vision. Sorry, this is the last slide, but really this is what we're here to talk about today. If you click the next one, the strategy lays out a vision. The vision is exciting. We think ports will play a key role. It also lays out important steps in the next 5 years to take. And there's a bunch of recommendations in the strategy around it. And really today we're going to be talking about a few of these in different ways, awareness, de-risking investment. So we're excited to be participating today. And with that, I'll pass it over to the next speaker. Thank you.